Hello on this Friday morning, a morning after a night before which VAR once again ruined. But we're not here to talk about Scotland. We're here to talk about Heart of Midlothian. Hello, my name is Joel Sked. I'm editor of Heart Standard. I am joined by my colleague James. Say hello, James.
Hello, James.
Good one. We are here to answer questions sent in by yourself, subscribers, listeners, readers, about everything and anything Heart of Midlothian. First of all, thank you very much for all the questions sent in. There were so many that I'm going to split over two. So I think I'm going to be joined by Scott McIntosh next week to discuss or talk over some of the questions that we don't get around to today, because James, you are in France for the Scotland-France games. So I'm not going to ask you to dial in from Lille and talk to me. So we'll get jumping straight into the questions. So apologies for some. I've taken some from Facebook and Twitter, and the ones I've taken from Twitter, I've just got people's usernames. So at Groathill1874, I think that's a guy called Bobby McBobbin. Not sure that's his real name. But anyway, what does Naismith need to do to get Shankland back on the goal trait again?
Well, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? That's that's a big one, and it's a tough one as well. I mean, I kind of touched on this a little bit in my article that's on the site today, and I think that there's been a bit of a lopsided approach to Hearts' attack this season. I think that whoever plays on the left, whether that be Alex Lowry, whether it be like Vargas, or whether it's even George Grant occasionally playing out there, whoever it is that's out there, they're not contributing as well as they do whenever they're playing elsewhere. So, like only 2 goals that Hearts have scored from open play this season have come from attacks down the left. Or no, 3, sorry. Only 3 out of 18, I think it is. And there's I think that's definitely part of the problem, is that, people whoever it is playing on the left, they're not getting goals, they're not getting assists, they're not contributing in the same sort of way that the players on the right are. And I think until that balance is addressed, I think that Shankland's going to continue to struggle, because basically, we all know it's like the last few games. Even you could look at the team, and yes, Hearts have been playing better. They've been making more chances over the last few games than they have the ones previous to it. But at the same time, they're not really falling to Shankland at the moment. You look back at those last few games, County, Kelly, the Derby, and it's hard to remember him having any clear-cut chances. So I think that's more down to the midfield not really pulling its weight in that sense, and I think that he's struggling to get him on the ball in dangerous areas. And as I say, I think that part of that comes down to there is an imbalance in midfield at the moment. And I think until that's addressed, Shankland will continue to struggle to get chances.
So yeah, because you look at the Derby game and he didn't really get a sniff, and you look at the one chance he came relatively close with, he basically fashioned that himself by dancing and dribbling past a few Hibs players to try and get the space to fire in a shot, which just whipped over the bar. I've also on the site this morning we've got what we've learned from the season so far. James looked at that, like the tactical versatility, the lopsided attack, the defensive numbers. I've got mine going up tomorrow morning. I'd also touch on Shankland, but it's more on like his goal drought and how Naismith said that there is sympathy there because he's not getting the chance. The team are not creating the chances that he needs. That again. Naismith takes responsibility for that, because he's putting a team out that should be creating the chances for Shankland. But I also look at the fact that this was a debate last season as to Shankland's positioning on the field. A lot of fans, social media are speaking to him. They saw Shankland as a number 9. So they wanted him to be like the focal point. They wanted him to be the number 9, the last point of attack, which I completely understand. And it's as a number 9, you want him in the box at all time, or as close to the goal at all time. However, I thought his best games or his best performances is where he was most influential, when he had a wee bit more freedom. When he sometimes played as a 10, or he played in one of these like kind of inverted. He basically played off the striker, sometimes in a wider position. And I thought that's where he worked best, because for I would argue he's the club's best number 9 and the best number 10. And he is so good at linking play, so good at contributing. So many times you see the ball fired into him, you take control it. You know that he's not going to lose it. And he's good at turning players. He's good at playing on the half turn. He's good at finding space. That's where I prefer him to be deeper, to be more involved, and then almost to arrive in the box while rather than waiting on stuff happening in the box, to arrive in the box when the game is being played, and attacks are materializing, because that's where if he can kind of see where the space is, he can see where opposition's defenders are. And you look at, I think Naismith's spoken about it before, how big and Hearts fans all know this, how big a loss Josh Ginelli was, because he turned out to be that central striker who was the closest to the goal, and his stretch play, again, that opened up space for Shankland to get involved. So yeah, whereas this season, I think he has been largely as the central striker. I mean, I read out that tweet, but we had 3, 4, 5 questions regarding Shankland, like whether it's the captaincy, doesn't he drop his relationship with Liam Boyce. I think him and Boyce in certain games can play together. I think they're really intelligent players, and they can do that, but I don't think that's the best blend.
No, I think you might be right. To be honest, it wouldn't be a surprise, I don't think, if we saw Shankland getting played in that number 10 role at some point in the not too distant future, because it's abundantly clear to everyone at the moment that he's not getting used in the best possible way at the moment. The numbers speak for themselves. Was it 7 games now without a goal? 8 games without a goal. It's
8, yeah.
8. So these droughts happen for strikers, and I'm sure it won't be long before he's back scoring again. But I think you're right. I think when you look back at last season, and most of Shankland's best performances did come in that kind of playing off the striker. And I think that it might. I think we could absolutely see that happening again soon. I think the return of Kusuke to Gawa as well to the squad also gives Naismith that option, because it's basically got a choice between, right now it's Boyce or Shankland at the very top, so it's got to be one of them or the other. And right now you can see why it's Shankland, but I do think that with Tagawa coming back into the squad, that gives Naismith another option for out and out number 9, and then maybe that does allow Shankland to drop that little bit deeper where he can get more of the ball, because I think that's part of it as well, is the fact that you can see he's been frustrated over even the last 5-6 matches because he's struggling to get into the game. And obviously at number 10, you're going to see more of the ball there, and you're going to get more of a chance to sort of work yourself into the game. So I think that would help just with a kind of confidence perspective. I think that would make him happy. He'd be more kind of getting into the flow of the game immediately, and getting a few touches, getting used to it, not getting frustrated, playing with his head up. And so again, I think we could see that in the not too distant future for sure, and that might be the answer to get him scoring again.
Yeah, and I think something I hope's going to impact and benefit him is the break. This break, he's played every game for Hearts. He's not going to go away with Scotland, which you'll probably be disappointed with, but at least gives him a break to kind of just I don't know whether it's find confidence, just have a chill. He's obviously just had another child as well, so all these things, because that's one thing I wrote about, is it's not just one thing that it's I think it's a number of factors that are contributing to the goal drought. We'll move on to where we go next. Okay, here we got at Greg Playfair. Following Alan Forrest's rise to prominence in the last few matches, do either of you believe that there are any other players in the squad that can step up from the periphery and make a similar impact in the upcoming fixtures? Now, I don't know how you view this, James, but I looked at the squad and I found it quite difficult to pick one, because a lot of players have either been used regularly, or there's guys who have been injured, like, for example, Tagawa.
Yeah, Joe, I was going to say the exact same thing. I mean, I had to quick look through the squad earlier as well, and it's like, as far as I can tell, there are 2 guys who I would classify as fringe players at the moment, and that's probably Haring and Halliday.
Yeah.
Apart from that, everyone who's not been injured, so aside from Craig Gordon, Craig Halkett, Bam Kai, everyone's had games. Everyone's
Yep.
everyone has been featuring. So I guess in order to answer the question, then the only guy I think of is maybe Tagawa. It's on the basis that he's played a little bit. He's been out injured. We've not seen too much of him, and I do think I'm quite encouraged by what I have seen from Tagawa. So I'll go for Kusuke Tagawa for the answer to that, just because he's basically the only candidate in my view.
So I thought there was one other candidate, and I will explain what working is George Grant, in that
Okay.
he was, I think, similar. He was very much on the fringes because he's admitted himself he was close to leaving the club in the summer. He's been brought back in. He was involved against Hibs. He played against Ross County. He played against Kilmarnock. So yes, he's been involved the last few games. However, like if you're comparing him to Alan Forrest has been used used throughout the season. But I do think Grant he's shown there that he could, if given a run of games, could have a similar impact to Forrest, and he's been moved position, he's been taken out of the team, and I think you wrote about this in your piece about the Naismith changes things from game to game, whether it be system, whether it be personnel, and I think that's something which might go against some players in that they probably need a run of games and in the same position as well, just to just to feel their way into the team, into the environment, to put building blocks in place for kind of confidence and getting up to speed. So yeah, that's probably one I would. He's probably one I would look at and probably could do with that, because he is showing that he's got quality to contribute.
No, definitely. Yeah, George Grant's probably a good example of a guy who, like you say, like Forrest. I think that was like you say, Forrest has been playing, earlier on in the season as well. He has been getting games, but George Grant's had to really work for it. And I think it's fair enough to call him a French boy in the squad, if given the fact that he did say he was close to leaving. He did say that he had some honest conversations with Naismith about what his game time was going to be like. So I think it's quite apparent that he is a French player. But like you mentioned, particularly the game against Kilmarnock, but even the game up in Dingwall as well, he did look pretty good, and he did look as if he absolutely does have a future at Hearts. Because I think that's the big question, really, is if he doesn't get games. If he doesn't get a run of games, he might be away in January. Well, if he's wanting to get minutes, because obviously he's a professional footballer, he's 27, 28. At that kind of stage of your career, you don't want to just be in and out the team. You want to be settled and getting minutes, getting games. So I think that, I would certainly like him to sort of really kick on and start providing more. But I think you've made a good point of the fact that because Naismith does like to change things, game to game, week to week, it's hard to, and particularly in the midfield as well. I don't know if Grant's going to get that kind of sustained run at number 10 that he probably needs for, I think he's at his best. Yeah. And as I said earlier as well, it wouldn't be surprising at all to me for Shankland to start playing number 10 sooner rather than later.
We'll move on to a question. Let's go to one from Scott McIntosh, Amaruso 1998 on Twitter. After seeing Hibs up close, do you think we have the personnel to set up in a similar fashion? So Hibs were 4-4-2, very aggressive 4-4-2 with two direct, quick wingers, two forwards. I think there's elements of how Hibs set up and play which could work for Hearts. Our Hearts have the personnel to play. Would it be a formation that I would like to see Hearts play? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think. I personally don't think it would really work. I mean, yeah, they could go for a kind of 4-4-2. And you're looking at, okay, so who'd do the most like-for-like replacements for Boyle and Youan? You'd probably go Vargas and Forrest, probably, perhaps Oda. And so you look at that and you kind of go, all right, they're not slow players, they are quick, but I mean, neither of them are as fast as Martin Boyle. Martin Boyle's pace is enough to hurt anyone. And then you look at Youan, where again he has an exceptional dribbler of the ball. I don't think that either Forrest or Vargas are quite as good as Youan when it comes to that kind of stuff. I mean, Youan was playing under 18, under 19, under 20s football for France. And you look at the France team just now and you think, oh God, it's like you can obviously play a bit, Again, so I think that's what makes Hibs so dangerous, is the fact that they've got two wingers there who, in Martin Boyle, I don't think there is a faster winger in Scotland. Maybe, perhaps Maeda, maybe. And then you think on the other side as well, you got Ewan, who's again one of the best dribblers of the ball in Scotland. I don't think that Hearts have either of those at the moment.
Yes,
I think that's what it comes down to, you know.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I look at if you want to play a midfield two, I think Devlin and Neuhoff. I've got the ability and the mobility to play as a two, to drop in and start play, to cover the pitch out of possession. I don't think that's an issue at all. I think we've got fullbacks that can be aggressive, especially I think Atkinson would have to play in to be fit and play in this, and probably you'd go, well, Cochrane or because we saw how well Kingsley been playing. Centre backs, I've had issues with 4-4-2, but we've talked about Halkett coming back. You've also got Rolls, his pace is good in these situations. Strikers, obviously, again, see how Tagawa, or you can move around different players to play the forward position and Shankland. But yeah, I think it comes down to those wide men, and that's what makes, unfortunately, Hibs such a dangerous proposition. I think they've got weaknesses, especially defensively, but it's those two wingers are match winners. So to answer your question, Scott, I think Hearts could play it, but I don't think it'd be as effective without wingers such as Johan and Boyle, unfortunately.
The other thing as well to mention is that the fact that, you know, Hibs, certainly the derby anyway, were very kind of direct and didn't see much of the ball in the midfield and all that kind of stuff. Whereas, you know, Hearts this season, or this Hearts team, certainly appears to be set up to have the ball, you know, so, and not to be not quite as direct. So I just think it's just a different style, you know, and I'm not entirely sure that Hearts are suited to it. And it's also not one that Naismith appears to like either, you know.
And I would mention Lowry and Barry Mackay. Like, I don't think Hibs have players off their ilk who would come off the line and play and create as well. Which I think is important within the balance of the team. Question on Facebook from Peter Chalmers: why didn't Stephen Naismith bring in his own backroom staff, as Donald Park worked with him at B team level, and I think Frankie McAvoy and Gordon Forrest were forced onto him because of the badges situation? I can answer this, Peter. Stephen Naismith requested both Forrest and McAvoy, from what I understand, to be part of his coaching staff. So that was his decision. And with the badges situation, Hearts did, I think, request dispensation for Naismith to be able to be named head coach for European games, but again, that didn't happen. So that's why McAvoy stepped in. Both McAvoy and Forrest have got their full licenses, but no, they were. I think a lot of fans thought that. I just assumed because Forrest was part of Nielsen's staff before, where we're kind of foisted upon him. I don't think that's the case. Obviously, Naismith worked closely with McAvoy, who was head of academy before he's moved into the coaching setup. Donald Park is a very, very experienced coach. He's still, as far as the last time I saw, he's still involved with the B team as well, Liam Fox's B team. So I don't think there was anything underhand in that situation. Kind of talked on the B team there. Dean Brown asked, why can't we ever use these moments when players are injured to give youth B team players a chance? Players like Bobby McCluckey, Macaulay Tate, or Mackenzie Kirk. Now, it's one thing I would say with kind of youth players is I think like in an ideal situation, you do chuck in. Fans would like to see young players played, but it's also, you need, I think, probably the right environment. And when the team are not in a great position, it's maybe not the best time to put them in. Also, so Macaulay Tate, he's been in and around the first team. I think he's had injuries issue. I think we probably would have seen Finlay Pollock more involved, I think, if he didn't have an injury. And regarding the B team, and it's one thing, it's a big step up. I think there's a lot of talent in the B team and under 18s, and a lot of the guys are playing like an age or two up. So there's like in the under 18s, there's guys there that are 15, not long term 15, 16 playing the 18s, and then 16, 17 olds playing B team football as well. I think with the players in around, because Mackenzie Kirk, watched him this season, I think there's a lot to like about him. There's similarities to Shankland, times his movement. Sometimes he's got a really good first touch. I think he is someone that needs to work on like the kind of physicality side of things. But I, using my own judgment, my eyes, I think there's still maybe a season away from seeing a larger number of players make that transition. And there's high hopes for a lot of players in the academy. There'll be a lot of excitement around James Wilson, who's wanted in Premier League, but he signed a new deal, and Gus Stevenson as well. I think he was similar, wanted by Premier League teams, and his Hearts managed to get him down to a longer term deal. But yeah, it's definitely something that I think Hearts need to, and something that Hearts want to do. I think it's a key reason that Naismith was chosen. One of the reasons that Naismith was chosen as manager was to help that pathway, to have that pathway between academy and the first team.
Yeah, you would imagine so. Obviously, that's his background. He knows all these players. You'd think that, that's one of the reasons he did get the job, was because he does know those players and he is able to, give them a chance when the opportunity comes around. I suppose to get back to the question of why they're not playing at the moment, I think you mentioned it yourself, but there's a whole bunch of factors that go into that, and it's just when the team's struggling as it was earlier on in the season, you can't. It's a very big ask to start throwing kids in at that stage. When there's a lot of pressure. Let's not forget Rugby Park, for instance. There's banners aimed at the board and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, I don't think it's particularly fair in that instance to chuck young players like that, young players into that environment where you just need to win. It's not. It's more about result than performance, and that's not a very, like you said, it's not the best environment to be, chucking young players in and trying to give them a taste of men's football. So I think that's part of the reason. Part of the reason as well is the fixtures at the moment. Again, if you've barely played any men's football, is it fair to chuck you in straight away against Celtic or Rangers? I would suggest probably not. Again, that's a very big step up to make. And then the other side of it as well is the fact that just the time of year that we're at, when early on in the season, there's a lot of first team players that need to get minutes, need to get up to speed, need to get up to match sharpness, and they need to take precedence over the youth players. And so I think there's a whole bunch of different things that have gone into it. And yeah, I think that had Hearts, for instance, started the season strong in a better fashion, I think we could have seen some of the younger guys from the B team getting a chance, but that's not what happened. And until you've got a run of games where the demand to win isn't quite so relentless, I think that's probably the time to give guys like that a chance.
And in an ideal situation, it is like Aaron Hickey, where he made his debut off the bench against Aberdeen and then played against Celtic Park as a 16-year-old, then played in the Scottish Cup final as a 16-year-old against James Forrest and was sensational. So like an ideal world that happens, but then it's Aaron Hickey is one of those players like Kieran Tierney at Celtic, where it's just like his talent's obvious, and it's like this superstar.
I think he's the exception and not the rule. You know?
But it's something we will explore more with in terms of the academy with B teams. Hopefully going to get to both B team fixtures next week and start doing pieces around that, because I've watched them a fair bit in the start of the season. There's a few players that really impressed me, like who asked the question? Sorry, it was Dean Brown. He mentioned McCluckey. He's someone that I watched. He caught my eye straight away when I watched the B team at the start of the season. Really positive, really exciting. Takes a man on, and he's probably a player that Hearts don't really have in the first team. So if there was one player I would be looking at, like, right, he could be. He could add to the first team. It would be him. Even another player like Rocco Friel, right back. Really like the look at him. Again, I think he's quite young as well, and the suggestion around Ofire being brought in on loan, perhaps. Sorry, with Ofire being brought in on loan, perhaps suggests that he is not quite ready for that step up. But yeah, it's definitely one that we will keep an eye on and explore and start writing about as well, with the hope that we'll start to see these guys in the first team. Where will we go next? Right, we've done that one. We've done that one. Graham Duthie asks, Barry Robson got a win against Rangers last season and already at Ibrox a couple of weeks ago. How important do you think it is that Naismith gets a statement win over Celtic or Rangers after the break? Now, to provide a bit of context, I can't remember where I wrote this. I don't know if it's for a piece tomorrow. Out of the last 60 fixtures against Celtic and Rangers, so 30 against Rangers, 30 against Celtic, I think Hearts have lost 47, which is which is not good. I think we've got a 13% win record across the last 60 fixtures, and I know it is a bugbear within the club that they've not been more. Hearts have not been more competitive against Celtic Rangers, and within the club is very much the ambition to get closer to Celtic and Rangers. To do that, you have to start winning against them.
No, absolutely. No, that's as simple as that. Yeah, and I think that, to answer the question, I think yes. I think a statement win would go a long way, because, like you say, if Hearts are wanting to start closing that gap, with the Old Firm, if they're wanting to firmly establish themselves as the third best team in Scotland, you do need to start taking points off the Old Firm. It's not good enough. It's beating everyone else and getting beat off Celtic and Rangers every time you play them. You absolutely do need to getting results off them, and even if you can't get a result, making it a competitive game, or making sure you're in the game and giving them a good go. Because I think that, like you say, if you've got designs, if you've got pretensions of being the third best team in Scotland, you need to act like it, and that means taking points off Celtic and Rangers. Other teams can do it. Other teams find a way of doing it, and Hearts have got to do the same. I think that if Hearts were to win against either Celtic or in either the two games against Rangers coming up, I think that would go a long way in terms of some of the questions that have been asked about Naismith, and people sort of point out his inexperience. Some fans aren't entirely convinced by him yet, and I think that if you can get a win in a game like that, all of a sudden you can see, okay, this team, when it plays to its potential, is good enough to beat anyone in Scotland. I think that's what you've got to be aiming for. I think that's what you need, and I think that's what the Hearts have to demonstrate. Yeah,
big time. I think even if it's not a win against Celtic when we play them on Sunday, a week on Sunday, sorry. But if it's like a draw with a really positive performance, that'll go a long way. Beating Rangers at Hampden, becoming the first Hearts manager to lead a Hearts team to a victory over Rangers at Hampden Park would be would go even further, and it would get that credit in the bank, which is so important to managers now, not just at Hearts but at all levels. So yeah, it's important that it's not only important for Naismith to do that, it's just important for Hearts to start beating Celtic and Rangers more regularly, especially at Tynecastle or in these big matches at Hampden, where we've got, or semi-finals or finals, which we've got to regularly over the last few years, but just not been able to make that final step. We'll finish with two quick ones. So I can't remember I think it was Scott Foley at Trago 13. This was an easy one. Can you write an article without your inner Jambo influencing the end result? That was aimed at me. I probably used to struggle with this, but I think as I've got older and more mature, I think I find it slightly easier to do. But sometimes it can be difficult. I mean, we're all fans of someone. For my sins, it's Heart of Midlothian. But and one just to follow on from that was how open will the club be with you to allow interviews and features? That's a big thing. Club have been really receptive with interviews and features, and hopefully I am sitting down with Joe Savage this morning, later on this morning, for an interview. So that will be going up on Heart Standard across the next week, I believe. And finally, Alan Patterson asks, Heart Standard, where will we finish at the end of the year, and how many trophies will we have?
I'm going to be optimistic. I'll say 3rd and 1. How about yourself? What are you thinking?
I'd love to see. It's trying to balance that positivity with the realism of knowing what it's like to follow Hearts. Yeah, I'll go third, but I'm afraid I'm not. I'm going to say that our Hampden hoodoo with Rangers continues. But yeah, let's go third. But caveat with there needs to be a big improvement. Just because the reason say third now is again something to touch on in a piece that's going up tomorrow. This first section of the season has been a big missed opportunity because Rangers have underperformed. Hibs and Aberdeen have gone through difficult moments. There's a real, and with the fixture list that Hearts had, there was a real chance to not only having put a bit of distance between us and Hibs and Aberdeen, but to actually being sitting second and with the positivity that brings. So I'll go. You pushed me into saying third, but yeah, there need to be improvement for that because I expect Aberdeen and Hibs to improve, and obviously there's you have to say St Mirren as well. They're a very very well organised, difficult team to break down. So yeah, we'll leave on a relatively positive note. But that is that's that for this question and answer session. Once again, thank you very much for all your questions. I believe if the stream on Facebook only kind of landed a few minutes ago, but it'll be up there if you can go back and watch the rest of it. We'll be back on next week. I won't commit to any days just because of James's holiday, but we'll be back next week with certainly with Scott McIntosh to discuss the other questions that have been sent in, but we didn't get around to answering. So they range from everything from Stephen Presley to Mauricio Pinilla to Vladimir Romanov and Chris Robinson. So that'll be interesting. But be sure to check out Heart Standards. There is James's piece on the season before up. Mine's going up tomorrow. We've got 2 interviews with Jerry Mallon that are on the site around the Foundation of Hearts and their relationship with the board and the board dynamic, and regarding the manager and the kind of fan criticism as well. Over the weekend, we've got an interview with Alex McDonald, former Hearts manager that James has done, and part 2 of the Edward Malavev infamous interim spell. So plenty of things to check out. And yep, thank you very much for your support and goodbye.